When I left Christianity and fundamentalist churches, I noticed how there's always a primary and a secondary way that churches work. And I've noticed that in a lot of denominations having to do with helping the poor, using the idea that suffering is a part of being a Christian and that prayer is more important than fixing your situation, is why a lot of people suffer through a very unhappy life, because they think that their next life is going to be better than this life. And I made a video a few days ago about how Christians are so obsessed with the world that's coming to them after death that they don't focus their attention on improving this world. They expect there to be hardship, unhappiness, sorrow. So they're not really overly worried or focused on viewing suffering as something that needs to be fixed. And this is a mighty big issue in fundamentalism. And I do feel compassion for people who don't have the ability to work to fix the world that we have. Because at the end of the day, how we view this world and how we fix this world says a lot about us as a person, as a community, and as a religion. And people are so focused and worried about the next life that they do very little to fix up the world we have and to enjoy this life. There's always a push toward suffering and enduring suffering. And I feel it's gotten so prevalent. Women won't even leave marriages because they believe that suffering and enduring all manner of abuse, discomfort, and disrespect as next to godliness. And when you deem prayer more important than fixing an issue or stepping up and doing actual physical labor, you have a major problem. I mean, recently a woman did a social experiment where she called all forms of churches and different religions and denominations, different parts of the state. And turns out that a Muslim mosque is more likely to help a woman than any Christian denomination or Christian institution. That's really not a surprise to me. I mean, it is not a surprise. I'm not saying that all Christians don't give, don't donate, don't volunteer. I'm saying that Christians aren't as giving and as blessed as they make themselves appear to be. They're not as generous as you might expect. And nobody should endure suffering if they can do something to alleviate it or to help other people. I've known a lot of people that have been in Christianity and fundamentalism, and they think prayer is more important than action. And yeah, I mean, I grew up going to sermons, 15 weeks of learning how to pray. I mean, if you need that long to learn how to pray, some of the people in these churches were hopeless causes. It's not that hard. And I don't pray anymore because I don't believe in an almighty deity that's listening to me. The idea that a man somewhere is listening to me is kind of creepy. But I just don't believe that prayer is more important than action. I don't believe that suffering is necessary to has a persecution complex, and it's very, very, very common in Christians. Not every Christian, obviously, but a good majority, especially in traditional fundamentalism. I mean, they love persecution. And when they're not being persecuted, they'll make up some reason to be persecuted. Even though white Christians are two of the top 3 most privileged institutions. Christianity, being white, and being male are the most privileged groups in America. And yet they think they're being persecuted. I mean, trans people are being persecuted. Minorities are being persecuted. But God forbid one Christian thinks they're being persecuted. And I'm not saying that no Christians are persecuted in America. But when you look at other groups that have 3 times the suicide statistics, that are being abandoned by their family, some people have to start a whole new family, or they lose everything, including all their friends and family. Being anything but straight is much more in line than being persecuted by people compared to any religious person. Christians in America are not being persecuted to any extent that even comes close to what the LGBTQIA people experience daily. And that's why I always say, hundreds of people are persecuted every day for not being the right kind of religious, white, or something else. But the world has to stand still because one Christian white person has to treat everyone equally, so they think their rights and their religion are being infringed. So at the end of the day, action is always more important than words. Action is always more important than prayer, than anything. And if you have to pray about something before you do something important, I mean, action is always more important than what you say. And I grew up in this environment that was so obsessed with prayer. They forgot how to be kind, how to be charitable, how to be non-judging. You have not felt judgment and ostracization like you would in any religious church. We call it shunning, but it amazes me the levels of activity and energy people will go to in church to avoid empathizing, showing compassion, helping people. And yet there's very liberal churches, non-denomination, smaller churches that care, give, help, and assuage, but not the church denominations I've been in. And it's consistently just terrible. We shouldn't have to do a social experiment to find out, oh, the Muslim mosque down the street is much more loving and Jesus-like than the Christian churches. That was not a surprise to me. Because there is no love, there is no hate like Christianity.